Well, here we are, once again, you and I together again. It's time for Old Soul Essentials, where I share simple words of wisdom and little bits of guidance for life, everyday life. And I am Giuseppe, your card-carrying old soul. So today I'm going to tell you the story about the Zen Farmer. And then after going to just talking a little bit about the lessons that the story contains. It's a very short story. And if you've been keeping up with any of my videos, you'll know that I struggle like there's no tomorrow with making a short video. And I keep wanting to do that. So today I'm going to check that box. So here we go. Story of the Zen Farmer. So he has a horse, and one day he's out working his field, and that horse just up and decides to run off. It gets loose, gets lost, and it doesn't come right back. So the villagers and his neighbors, when they hear about this, they all come over and they're like, "Oh, we're so sorry. This is terrible. What bad luck." And the Zen farmer, he's like, "Well, maybe. Good luck, bad luck, who knows? We'll see." And he, pretty much just plays it cool. And then about a week or so later, he sees his horse coming back. And not only that, there's a few wild horses that are tagging along with it. So the villagers, when they find out, they come by and they're like, "Oh, this is great. Hallelujah, this is wonderful. What a stroke of good luck. Your horse came back and now you got a few new horses." And the Zen farmer, of course, is just calm and collected, and maybe yes, maybe no. And the villagers are kind of wonder a little bit, and then they go home. And so another week or so goes by, and the Zen farmer's son comes to visit. And since his dad has these new wild horses, he figures he'll help try and train one of them. And he gets on one, it bucks him off, he falls and breaks his leg, and then he's laid up for a while. The villagers and neighbors, they hear about this and they come over and they want to be empathetic, and they're, "Oh, we're so sorry to hear about your son. How terrible. How unfortunate." And the Zen farmer, maybe. So some more time goes by, week or so, and then some military officers come by, going door to door, conscripting young able-bodied men for the service. And of course they see his son laid up with a broken leg, and like, well, he's useless. We can't take him. So they pass him by. And then the villagers come back, and after they've heard about this, and they're like, "Hey, this is great, Son doesn't have to risk his life or go to war or worry about any of that. How wonderful." And of course, the Zen farmers, maybe. Who knows? And that's the story of the Zen farmer. So on and on it goes. One thing happens, and at first it seems like it's a bad thing, but then another thing happens and it turns that first thing into like an actual good thing. And then another thing happens and makes the other thing seem like a bad thing, and then another thing happens and it's a good thing, and then another thing happens and it's a bad, and it's just the good and bad is constantly in flux with the same event. And ultimately the lesson is, it's about attitude, it's about perspective, how we choose to look at something, how we choose to feel about it, how we choose to react to it. And really, to put it simply, it's all about just going with the flow, trying to just be cool, keep your cool, not get too excited or uh, celebrate too early, put your cart before your horse, or flip out and lose it and throw a tantrum and just, shake your fist at the air and be mad about something going a certain way and you wish it was another way. That's just resistance. And when you take that attitude and feel like you just wish it wasn't that way, it only makes it harder. It's like, it's kind of like not necessarily being optimistic, but not being pessimistic either. It's just kind of like staying right in the middle. When things happen to us that are hard to experience, the best thing we can do is, as they say, is take it in stride, roll with the punches. And there's a couple examples of that where I actually embodied that in my life. One of them was the first time I ever went to jail, first and only time I ever went to jail. It was for some like paperwork, dumb stuff, and I was only in for about a day and a half. Had to do with my license. Anyway, when I was in there, I had this thought, and at the time, I didn't know how long I was going to be in there. I had no idea, and I was a little freaked out that I might be there for a while. And then, of course, the guys that are in there, they got nothing better to do, so messing with the new guys like their best form of entertainment. So they're like freaking me out. They're like, "Oh, you're going to be in here for a couple of years, man." And anyway, I was mentally preparing to be in there for a long time. And one thing that really helped me out a lot, and this might be funny or whatever, but I've always been a fan of the show The Trailer Park Boys. And as if you're familiar with that show, you know that Ricky, one of the main characters, he goes to jail like a lot. And it's really like no big deal for him. He almost like enjoys being in jail if he's there. He doesn't want to go to jail, but when he's there, he's like he has a good time, more or less. So somehow that thought came to me. I'm in jail, and then I'm like, well, what would Ricky do if he was in jail? He would get comfortable. And so that's what I did. I that was my I instantly switched the way I was looking at the situation of me being in jail, which was pretty god awful. Like I said, I didn't know how long I was going to be in there, so the psychological impact of that was pretty heavy because I was trying to accept that it might be a year or more. But when I decided like I'm going to get comfortable, I'm going to like not only get comfortable, but I'm going to go so far in the other direction and just like have fun with it, try to enjoy it, as opposed to trying to resist it and fight it and kick and scream, which will only make it worse, and be mad about it and throw a tantrum in my head. So my attitude and my perspective changed that bad experience, and it wasn't really a picnic, but I did manage to be okay and make the most of my time in there. I did some drawing. I played chess with my cellmate, shot a few hoops a little bit, had some conversation with some people in there, and I actually managed to one of the last people that was in the cell that I was in, someone left a copy of The Hobbit in there, and I had never read that book before. I had seen the Lord of the Rings trilogy movies, but I had never read The Hobbit. And this was back before the Hobbit movie came out. And so I started reading that book, and that got me through the night. That fully got me through the night. I was Bilbo, and I didn't finish it, but I got pretty far through it. And I loved it so much that as soon as I got out, I went and got a copy of The Hobbit so I could finish it. I digress. Another situation that is where this philosophy applies was the hardest breakup I've ever had to go through was also the hardest experience of my life so far. It really hit me hard, and I really struggled with it. It was very painful. I suffered a lot, and it didn't pass quickly. Now, when that breakup happened, I had been playing music for almost 20 years, playing guitar. And up to that time, I'd only written maybe like 5 songs ever in the span of 20 years, like with lyrics, 5 songs, if that, like, that's literally it. But after this breakup, while I was, while it was, while the wound was as fresh as could be, it was within like the first few weeks, if not, I think within the first month. It was about a month after the actual breakup that I had this explosion of songwriting. I wrote like we split up, and then about a month after I started writing songs. It was like my catharsis, it was my therapy. I just I just clung right onto it and just ran with it. And within that first month that I started writing songs, I think I wrote about 30 or so songs, and then within 6 months I had about 50 songs fully written, and they're all pretty decent. I'm proud of this. I'm proud of all of them. They all sound different. It's not like I wrote the same sounding song 50 different times. Anyway, so all these ideas. It's like the silver. There's always a silver lining. No pain, no gain. Before before any of these concepts, or even before I ever heard the story of the Zen Farmer, I think it was when I first started my road trip. I embraced this idea that bad things are good things. Bad things are good things, in the sense that anything bad that happens, there is always something to gain from it. Now, if something happens and it's a bad thing, sure, it can be painful. It doesn't mean that something doesn't hurt to experience, or that there's pain, or that there's suffering. That part kind of objectively is bad. But in the grand scheme of things, that pain, that suffering is eventually always ends up becoming very useful because we learn from it. Pain is one of the best teachers, if not the best teacher. When we fail, when we mess up, when we when a little kid learning about life accidentally puts their hand on the stove or something hot and burns their hand, they that sucks to have that happen, but they learn never to be careful what they touch, especially if it's something that's burning hot. So that painful experience served a purpose. And that's the other lesson in the story of the Zen farmer, is that everything really does happen for some reason, or it serves some purpose, even if it's in a roundabout sort of way, or you got to take the scenic route to finally find the reason. And I think a lot of the struggle that we get when we have difficult experiences is that the reason for it, or the purpose for that bad thing, usually doesn't reveal itself in that moment or immediately. More often than not, some time has to pass. Could be days, it could be weeks, months, years. And all we can do is just be patient and keep coming back to it and reflect. And one day we'll finally be able to see, like, oh, this totally miserable, awful thing that I went through, I get it now. I got something out of that. I know what the lesson is now. So bad things are good things, and good things can end up being bad things. There's the saying, blessings in disguise. There's a little joke, and I'm going to butcher this, but there's this joke that there's a guy who is just ahead, and he's in a bar, and in that bar, like I said, I'm going to butcher this, but there's like a magic bartender. Okay, there's a magic bartender, and the the dude that's just ahead says, well, the bartender says to the dude that's just ahead, he says, "Hey, welcome to the bar. I'll give you 3 wishes." So that the dude that's just ahead says, "I wish I had a body." And then bartender, boom, done. The torso, the head just suddenly has a torso, no arms and legs yet. Like I said, I'm butchering this, but you'll get the idea. And then the dude with the head, he's like, "Well, I'd like to have some arms too." Boom, the bartender grants him that wish, and all of a sudden he's got arms. He's like, "Hey, this is great." And he's like, "All I need is some legs. I wish I had a pair of legs." And then poof, the bartender, granted, gives him a pair of legs. And then all of a sudden, he's got this brand new pair of legs and body and arms. He doesn't know how to use them yet, so he starts stumbling around and trying to get his balance on his feet, and he kind of fumbles around and ends up going outside, and he gets hit by a car. And the lesson is he should have quit while he was ahead. Anyway, I think on that note, I'm going to end this video because it's probably getting long now. And like I said, I really want to make a short video. So, as always, thank you so much for listening and watching and tuning in. I hope you got something out of it. Leave a comment if you feel compelled. For anything, criticism, let me know. Feedback, something I can do better, not do, or share something in your life where something was a blessing in disguise. And maybe catch me next time for another episode of Old Soul Essentials with me, Giuseppe. For real. Much love to you. Love and respect. You're totally rad, and you're beautiful. Thanks again. Bye.